Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is a post recording update or edit or whatever. Um, so, this week's guest, we have Heather Mosier on, which you guys are all familiar with. Heather lives in the sticks and she was experiencing some storms during the recording. So, she is, oddly enough, it's very strange. She's almost completely absent from the. Whole intro of the episode into the news segment, and she does come back in at the very end of the news. I did try to edit it very seamlessly so that way you guys don't really notice. I probably am not that good at it. It's 3:30 in the morning. The Wednesday before it's supposed to come out in less than 5 hours. So I did my best. And, that's all you can do sometimes. So I tried to make it, like I said, as easy to listen to as I could. She is in the entire rest of the episode. Once you do hear her crop up eventually, she just kind of skipped the intro part. But we did still happen to get the news in there somehow and talk about our weekends, which I did have some things that I wanted you guys to hear. So I did want to cut all of that out and just start over. So it is in there. So without further ado, you guys, Pat O, how was your weekend?
My weekend was pretty good. I recorded what can only be described as a lifetime worth of Y2K movies episodes, including an episode featuring Signs, guest starring friend of the show Jim Jam from Tennessee Horror News and the Horror Basement and Beyond.
Ooh.
So look forward to that next week. This week, I think we're doing Sharksploitation, which was the Tubi or no, Shutter. It was a Shutter documentary about the sharksploitation craze post Jaws,
Oh, very
and
cool.
yeah, it's a pretty interesting documentary. It's on Shutter. Check it out. So did that. Went to the movies twice. Saw Meg 2, which was pretty all right, and Ninja Turtles, which was fucking fantastic.
Ooh.
And I love Barbie. I know you love Barbie, Heather. I
Yes.
don't know if you saw Barbie. Um, yeah, Barbie's solid. Ninja Turtles was really good too, in a completely different way. But it's interesting. So I'm like kind of a Ninja Turtles fan. Like I'm of that age. They kind of came out when I was in grammar school, the original cartoon. And the
Yeah.
one choice that this movie makes is that it leans very heavily into the teenage part, where they're voiced by young actors, by child actors, like 15 years old. They want to go to high school. April's in high school. Prom is kind of an aspect of it, and it's so interesting in all of the iterations of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that I've ever seen. They never really made them. I mean, they would make them juvenile, but they never made them like straight up teenagers. And they did that with this one, and
Right.
it was a really interesting, albeit like totally obvious choice to make. And I dug the shit out of that. So did that, and then one of the things I wanted to talk about that I did this weekend is me and the family played Alice is Missing, and this is a game that was created by the same people that did Kids on Bikes, and it's interesting because you play it entirely via text message. There's no speaking whatsoever.
Okay.
So you play a group of kids, and this girl Alice is gone missing, and you and your friends try to solve the mystery of what happened to her. And there's clues, and it basically you kind of create your character, and you create, you talk a little bit for about a half an hour, and this is who I am, this is who you are. You change everyone's name in your cell phone, and then you start you can go on the website, or you can go on YouTube, and there's like a count, or you could just like use your cell phone. There's a counter that counts down from 2 hours, and every 10 to 15 minutes you have to draw a card, and that like kind of moves the story along, and the different cards say different things, so every time you play it it's different. But you're not talking to each other whatsoever. You're doing it all via text, and there's a group text where everyone kind of communicates, but you could also text each other on the side. And it's very interesting. It was great to play with the kids because, number one, they're going to be on their cell phones anyway, so it lets them stay on their cell phones. But it also kind of incorporates like role playing and improv, and it was really interesting to see how my kids responded to that. Now I totally cleaned up with it. Like I was making everyone laugh, and doing the funny dad shit. But it was good for them, and I think that's, my wife used to be a rec therapist, and she's always been, as much as she's not a nerd, she loves it when we play D&D because she can appreciate kind of the benefits of, like, the strategy and the storytelling and the math aspect of it. And
Sure.
this was another thing where she got really excited about this game and was really happy to play it and very enthusiastic. And I highly recommend it. Alice is Missing. It's like a deck of cards that you buy for like $15, and you do the whole thing through that. There's some source material stuff you got to print off the website, but other than that, it's worth checking out. And I just saw online that it's already been optioned for a movie by Paramount because it's got a real like Twin Peaks, Stranger Things kind of vibe to it too. Um,
Wow.
so definitely recommend that. Alice is Missing. Check it out. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
real
it
cheap,
looks
and
really
I
cool
it's
to
the
me.
same company. It's the same company that did Kids on Bikes, and I have never got a chance to play Kids on Bikes. I have the book for it, but I just don't have those kind of friends that would sit there and do that with me. Kids on Bikes is like, so if you can imagine kids, the term Kids on Bikes being a movie genre, think of like E.T. or Goonies or Stand By Me or it's kind of Spielberg, it's kind of Stephen King, like kids on bikes and they go and they get an adventure. And there's a game that's like, it's kind of like D&D where there's a little bit of stats and mechanics, but it's mostly role playing. And the people that I game with IRL, like around here, are mostly just like the people that play D&D. It's just like they want to like kill orcs and shit. They're not going to do something that involved. So I've never got a chance to do Kids on Bikes. But the thing about Alice is Missing that's really cool is that you can totally play it over Discord too. And that's one of the selling points of it is that, yeah, you play it in real life and everybody's texting, but it translates online very seamlessly. So that's something to consider as well. Yeah. All right, we'll figure it out. What was you went, didn't you go, you did get a convention?
I did. I went to the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Festival in Logan, Ohio, which is basically the Hocking Hills area. Very big Bigfoot hotspot in general. It was a 2-day event, Friday and Saturday, which I think is weird. I don't know how I feel about that. I worked Friday afternoon, morning. So I, couldn't leave until later. And you would think a lot of people would kind of be in that position, but okay. Um, anyway, it was nice because I'm only about just a little under 2 hours away from that area.
That was
Um,
my first question is actually, where's that at? Because I've never heard of that area of Ohio before. Not that I'm some kind of historian, but
Sure.
yeah.
No,
So for our
Well, no,
listeners, is
Hocking
that
Hills, Ohio is
north,
pretty
south?
historic. Well, that's like it's kind of more on like it's that same general area, that West Virginia, Pennsylvania kind of corner. Um,
Gotcha. Okay. By
you know,
Chillicothe.
it is by Chillicothe. Yes.
Right. See, I'm learning.
So you're getting there. Yeah, you know the area. Heather, are you back? I'm just gonna check in real quick. Okay. Yep. Yep. No. Are you robot head? That's only you can answer that question. Um,
I'm not going to answer that one for you.
we don't have that answer for you. Yeah, I don't. You might have to do some soul searching, but anyway, just making sure that you're back. So initially, I was just gonna go for Saturday, the one day, and just kind of go just spectate. I mean, my friends go, I like Bigfoot, I guess you could say, but Eric and Carrie, who, if you guys, well, for whatever reason, if you don't know who they are, you need to, they came up or came down rather from Erie, Pennsylvania, and they had rented like a little cottage and had offered us to stay with them. And I was like, well, hell yeah, I'm not going to turn that down. Staying with Eric Carey and the Pug Army. Fuck yeah. So we came down Friday night. We stayed the weekend. Couple of fun stories I got. So Friday night we get into town about 6:30. Well, we get in about 6 and we decided to stop at the cottage first. They told us, hey, we're going to leave the cottage unlocked. You guys can just walk in, leave your stuff, grab the keys, bring them up to us at the festival. No big deal. Cool. So we lose service about 10 minutes away from the cottage and just absolutely no service at all anywhere. But the map is still up, so we're still, finding our place. So we pull up to the cottage, and we pull up to like a shack, like a little, I mean, really, it was very small, and there's supposed to be 5 of us staying here. But we're like, well, okay, this is where we're sent to. So we go in, and we notice. I mean, it's like there's a love seat, and there's like some stairs leading up to a loft and one bed that is like queen size. So I'm like, okay, I'm not sure where everybody's gonna sleep. We'd been in the car for a little while, so I decided to use the bathroom, and I'm peeing in the bathroom. And while I'm peeing, I know Eric and Carrie had got in on Thursday. We're there on Friday. I noticed that the toilet paper still had like the fancy stamp on it. So it dawns on me, we're not at the right place. So we just broke into somebody's cabin, broke into
Took a
somebody else's
shit,
little cottage,
left.
took a shit and left. We sure did.
There you
Uh,
go.
So that was cool. I was like, we should probably get out of here. Well, because they said, like I said, the keys are on the table, and we look, and there are keys sitting on the table. I mean, none of their shit's there, right? But it's obviously it's not the right place. So we left there. We found the right place. And we're like looking at I mean, there was like stuff. It had been like lived in for a moment. And we're like trying to decide, is this Eric and Carrie's stuff? I don't. Thankfully, there was like something there that had Eric and Carrie, their name on it. And we're like, oh, okay, thank God. So that was great. So we did a B&E before the festival. And so then we get to the festival. All right. And like I said, we arrived at the festival around 6:30. This is really cool. This is high strangeness related, potentially. Maybe Bigfoot related. We'll see. We'll see what you guys think. So we get at the festival at 6:30. Well, Eric and Carrie, they left the festival at 6:30. We missed them just by a couple of moments, right? But we're all staying at the same place. They headed back to the cottage. We'll see them later. It's fine. When we went back from the festival itself, we had noticed that there had been a tree that had fallen down at some point in the middle of the road. We know that because we can see both ends of a tree, but like the whole middle's missing because that's what was covering the road. Well, we get back, and according to Eric and Carrie, it was an entire ash tree that had fallen in the middle of the road at some point. So we so we are there, and they're telling us all about this tree that they saw in the middle of the road. Okay. And so they're explaining that they came upon a tree. They had to call the guy who owned the cottages to come clear the tree out. So a whole tree had blocked off the road. That's the point of the story. Within about a half an hour of us crossing paths, of us being on the road and Eric and Carrie being on that same road. And it just was strange because there wasn't any wind. There wasn't a storm.
Isn't that a Hellier thing?
There was a tree blocking a road in Hellier. I don't remember the exact details of it, but you're not wrong. Yeah.
Isn't that
There
a
was
Hellier
something
thing?
about it,
The
yes.
tree in the
I
road?
don't remember what the details were, but yeah, that was a thing. So it was very strange.
Wow.
I mean, do trees just fall down by themselves? Yeah, they do. But again, usually there's some other like it's a rotting tree, right? And there's some other like force that knocks it over. And there weren't storms, it wasn't windy. Ask the people at the festival how much wind there was. There was none. It was so who knows what happened. The next day we'd kind of checked out the tree a little bit more. We looked at like the base or whatever, and saw what kind of was going on there. And it didn't uproot the tree. The whole thing like broke.
What was the outside air temperature? Because I know we were talking before, and you were like, it was
So
hot.
I
But I
think
mean,
it
like,
was like
how hot was it?
88,
How
but
hot we
when you're
talking here?
talking at the like where the festival was, it's on blacktop. It's down. It's on the whole street. So I don't know what those would have been like.
Yeah. Anything over 85 is like unbearable. Not unbearable, but like
Yeah.
it's fucking hot.
Right.
You know what I mean? The difference between 85 and like 87 or 85 and 92, if it's over 85, you're generally
Right. And
uncomfortable.
it was all sun.
know?
Well, and I feel like the sun has had a pretty hardcore UV index lately. So that means that regardless of the temperature outside, the sun itself is shining at such a high rate We'd been talking about that with my daughter, who's gotten sunburned a couple of times this year, and that's unusual because that doesn't. And despite the fact that she's worn sunscreen, that she usually doesn't burn. So I think that that's kind of another thing that's been going on. But yeah, like I said, when it's
Mm,
reflecting off that blacktop, I mean, gosh, who knows? It's probably. So I was telling Pat before we recorded, some of the vendors were saying that like their shit was
yeah.
melting on the tables. It was so hot Friday. So horrible. Yeah, absolutely horrible. People were leaving. So leaving early. The vendors were leaving early. But the whole festival was like from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. It was a full ass day. Like, yeah, both days. It was crazy. So
Wow.
anyway, so we saw that cool tree situation, and who knows what it was. One of the speakers had talked about it, so people were, interested. The locals and stuff are like, oh yeah, that happens all the time. All these trees get pushed out in the road, especially when they have a lot of people coming, a lot of traffic coming in for events and stuff like that. So they seem to think it's Bigfoot, and it's Bigfoot's way of stopping people from trying to get into the area. Who knows? Who knows? Could have just been termites. But
Right.
I'm going to say it was Bigfoot. So that's my personal and professional opinion. So, and then Saturday was great. Saturday you ended up getting the wrap up party. I had met some people that I had never had the chance to meet yet, which, like I've said before, is always exciting. Um, very, very interesting group of folk. I saw our good buddy, Jeff Craig,
Oh, yeah.
from cartographer Jeff Craig, Map in Black. He was there. Sherwin from Sherwin Sketch. Sherwin's a great dude. Who else was there? Oh my gosh, I can't remember. TJ Owens. TJ is a very interesting guy. I don't know if he does like wildlife photography, and then he lives he lives on a property. It's like 30 minutes outside of Point Pleasant. Which he says stuff happens on the property and things like that. Anyway, he's a great guy. Gave me a walking stick. And so that was, shout out to TJ for the walking stick. And then, of course, Ron and Joe from Wild and Weird West Virginia, who I always love seeing. I'm never sad about seeing them. Yeah, great, great people. So just lots of good people. It is a fun festival. They do stuff. That's the difference between like, so a lot of these you just kind of go just to buy shit, and maybe there's some speakers. This isn't like that. Like they have like Bigfoot call contests, they have like raffles. I mean, there's stuff going on all
How do you
day
judge
long.
that? How many Bigfoot show up when you call?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had 26 show up at one point in time. It was pretty.
A murder.
I got home. I told my daughter, I was like, I saw Bigfoot. She's like, oh, really? She's like, what did it look like? Where did you see him? I was like, well, there was a lot of Bigfoot. People dressed up as Bigfoot statues, Bigfoot standees. She's like, whatever. But it's fun. It's like I said, it's always nice being the spectator, instead of having the responsibility. And then, we get to kind of hop around to our friends and make sure that they're okay, especially when it's that fucking hot. Make sure they're okay. They don't need anything. Watching booths, things like that. So it's always a full time. I got way too drunk on Saturday night. We all went out to a bar afterwards. I bought one drink, and then I don't know where the rest came from, but I didn't care. But it was all people I didn't know. So that was cool. Like Jeff Craig had come out, but then I didn't know anybody else. Like all the speakers, I kind of knew of them. Well, Ken Gerhard was there. Ken was there, and I knew Ken. And I mean, other than that, like I had met Steve Coles for the first Coles, I think that's how you say his name. I'd met him for the first time. He's a great dude. I met Michael Cook. Yeah, I had never met him before. I had met B Mills, but this was the first time I'd actually gotten to speak to her. She was at the Frogman Festival. I introduced her there, but I didn't get a chance to talk to her. So anyway, that's always my favorite part, meeting the new people and then deciding who you like and who you don't. So that was my weekend, but I did get some interesting stories from people. Got two really interesting stories from Eric and Carrie. Now, these are secondhand stories. Of course, somebody told them to them, and then they told them to me. And I'm really, really interested in what they are. And I know that you guys here really want to hear them. So I have good news and bad news. The good news is that I will tell them to you. Okay. Absolutely. The bad news is that they're going to be behind that nice paywall that you like. But that also comes with good news. guess what's making a huge splash in a big way? The Patreon. Oh my gosh. So you guys can subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/itsashers. There's all kinds of super new features, super cool stuff. I know, Pat, you had mentioned being able to like play games and shit on the Discord. The Discord's going to be one thing you'll have access to. I don't know if we're going to do anything like that. If somebody wants to host it, hey, I'm bound to do it.
Yeah, I could see doing that. I would host Alice is Missing on the Discord. It would be relatively easy, I think.
Why not?
Yeah.
There's an all new weekly meetup where you can meet up with, at minimum, myself every Sunday to discuss the latest episode. If the guests want to show up, they can. If Pato shows up, hey, he does. It is the day of the Lord, so I don't know if Pat's going to make it, but it's.
I didn't want to hijack the show, but I am no longer doing the streaming stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. So my Sunday my Sunday's freed up. That happened. I just found that out on this Sunday. Actually, I had to sit in the pews like a fucking bystander, and I didn't like it. So yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
Well, I quit Jesus. That's
yeah. I'm like, no, I'm here to work, and if you don't have a job for me to do with the technology, then I'm leaving. If you think I'm going to sit here and listen to this shit like all these other clowns, no, you got the wrong guy. So
not me, my friend.
I told my wife, I'm like, Tag, you're it. I'm fucking out. I'm out. So yeah, I'll be around Sundays. Yeah.
At minimum, I will absolutely be there on Sundays to talk about the latest on Wednesdays We Talk Weird episode, or whatever the fuck you guys want to talk about. I'm excited about this because I want to get to know you people a little bit better. I feel like you know everything about me. Pretty much short of what my butthole looks like. So
you can imagine.
Get on the lives on Sunday and let me know what your butthole looks like. We'll talk about it or whatever. It's exciting.
A bunch of chocolate starfishes sitting around talking to each other.
I hope everybody starts their camera that way with their butthole right on screen.
God,
that would make me so proud. No, but seriously, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff. Like I said, today, the day that you guys are hearing this right now, the latest Weird World is available finally. That's another thing that's going to continue on a monthly basis. And I definitely want you guys to hear some of these cool stories that I get to, partake in. So that'll be lots of fun. Well, I didn't prepare any news this week. Pat, did you have any news?
No, there was a couple stories that were making the rounds about South American villagers being terrorized by extraterrestrials. That there was, I know I sent you the one, but the video was in Spanish. Although YouTube will translate stuff for you. YouTube, you can hit a button and it'll pop up with whatever kind of language subtitles you want. But there's nothing like, groundbreaking in the video. It's just a bunch of, I don't know, El Salvador people with flashlights in the middle of the night fucking screaming at each other. But they seemed legitimately scared. And I think that, that kind of ties in to, I'm still reading that book about the Coronado abduction flap, I guess you would say, that happened in the 90s when Clinton was staying at the hotel during a MUFON convention. And a bunch of experiencers claim to have been abducted by UFO aliens. And some of the memories, they think that the Secret Service was actually present during the abductions. And that, I think that kind of coupled with that news story that I sent you about the South American people under siege, I think it kind of shows the, with all this UAP stuff that's going on in Congress right now, that eventually we're going to have to really kind of we're going to have to talk about the abduction mythos and how that fits into all this, right?
Yeah.
Because and I understand we're going to start with the tangibles. We're going to start with the footage. We're going to start with the crafts. We're going to start with really reliable witnesses, military pilots, people, stuff that we can prove, stuff that we can, measure and quantify and hold on to. I get that, right? That's a good place to start. But once we kind of establish all that, this is another thing that we're going to have to get to. And this is when it's going to get kind of weird and kind of scary is, are these people telling the truth? And if they are, what does that say about what's going on here, because if not only can we not control the skies, and that's kind of why the UAP stuff is happening right now, is that they're turning it into an issue of national defense. If we can't even really control our own skies and these things outmaneuver us like that, what happens when we acknowledge that they're potentially coming down here and having domain over the people as well? Where they're hypnotizing, or they're switching people off telepathically, or they're abducting people, and they're harvesting. This book that I'm reading is very old school. I mean, it came out a couple of years ago, but the Coronado incident happened in 1994, and it's got that like 90s abductee vibe to it, with like, it's written by Yvonne Smith, who's a hypnotherapist, and a lot of the stuff is memory regression, and it has that vibe of all that stuff. It's got, it's very much in line with like communion and stuff like that. And if we start getting into that territory with the UAP stuff, I know it seems kind of far fetched, but 5 years ago, there's probably a lot of people that think that we wouldn't be seeing them talking about what we're seeing them talk about in Congress now, right? Well, move the timeline down 5 years, and what are we talking about? And I think that I, this hints at what could be around the corner with the UAP stuff, even though.
So oh, go
No,
ahead.
no, that's it. That's it.
Oh, I was just gonna say I did pull up the details of that video because I'm very interested in stuff like this happening. So aside from videos that I can't understand, um, I did pull up an article on it. It's actually super interesting what's happening. So this is happening in a village in Peru, and they're saying that they're being terrorized by, well, essentially aliens, and this is not like the first of its kind. This
Right.
is kind of stuff we've heard about before. And what is going on there, they're saying that here's a direct quote. These gentlemen are aliens. They seem armored like the Green Goblin from Spider-Man, which I think is kind of hilarious.
They look like
um
Willem Dafoe.
But that's what he said. He said, I've shot him twice, and he does not fall, but rises and disappears. We are frightened by what's happening. So he went on to further describe what they look like, as this is the community leader that's saying all this.
The head Peruvian.
The head Peruvian. He said that they are silver in color with long heads and eyes that are half yellowish. They're saying that they're about 6.5 feet tall, and they're wearing some type of shoes that allow them to levitate.
Yeah, I saw the clip where he's describing the shoes, and I thought that was really funny. I mean, it's terrifying,
Yeah.
I guess, but it's kind of, hear him talk about shoes like that. Like,
Right, some type of weird device. But really, and they've just kind of been running around terrorizing people, whatever that means. But they did end up attacking a teenage girl. And she did end up, getting away unscathed with a couple of scratches on her neck. But at that point in time, now they're calling for the authorities to bring in the military
right.
to help get rid of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, they have kind of a neighborhood watch thing going on there, where they're patrolling at night, trying to keep these things out of the village. But yeah, they were asking for government assistance, which sounds kind of legit to me, because you're not going to invoke the military in those, where they have like warlords and shit. I don't know. I'm not trying to be fucking dismissive, but it's just
No, right.
it's very interesting in light of everything that's going on, and when you think about where this conversation could be heading, that we might see more attention paid to things like this, and we might see people, witnesses, sitting in front of Congress, telling their experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, what's do we get involved as the United States now with everything that we're talking about at the moment? Do we send our force there, our arrow there to investigate the situation? I mean, we haven't yet, clearly, but maybe we should.
Well, some people think that there could be a deal already in place. I mean, I'm definitely not the
Right.
first person to suggest this. This is kind of
No.
as old as time, but that there's already kind of a deal in place between some of the higher ups and whatever these forces are. It's long been thought that, we struck a deal where we allowed a certain number of abductions to take place in exchange for technology or
Mhm.
just survival. I mean, whatever, where they said, hey,
Right.
look, we can come and annihilate you, or we only need to look at a couple 100,000 of your people, and you let us do that without, you kind of aid us in that, and we'll teach you how to make iPhones. I don't know, fucking whatever.
I don't know. I mean, and what are they doing there? I mean, obviously they're just kind of running around scaring the shit out of people. It's not like they're
Well,
doing
that's
anything.
it's a very non-typical description too. I mean, you have 6.5 foot tall.
Green
Okay,
Goblin coming
grays aren't
around.
usually described as being that tall. I mean, sometimes you have people talk about aliens that are that tall, but
Yeah.
that's not your prototypical description of alien life that we're kind of used to. That's
With
something.
hoverboard shoes.
Yeah, that's something a little bit different. So what's that about? Who are these guys? Who are these dudes showing up to the party? You know what I mean? Um, it's interesting. I don't know. That's all I had for news.
Heather, what do you think about Peruvians being invaded by Green Goblin like aliens?
Uh, I mean, that's sucks for them, I
Right,
guess.
better them than us, right?
Yeah, I have no desire when it comes to extraterrestrial stuff. That's the kind of thing that I don't ever want to deal with.
Yeah, encounter.
Yeah, so that sucks for them. That's pretty much where I am on that. I'm glad it's not me.
Fair enough. We'll see what happens with it. If anything, I mean, we've come across these stories before on the show, and nothing ever comes of it. But I don't know how many villages do you need to be like, hey, we've been attacked by aliens, and then they just get into their spaceship and fuck off forever, before we start really looking at it seriously. We'll see. So that's a good story, Pato. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, no problem. Just doing my job.
Nice work. So this is going to be I'm excited about this episode. So Heather, you actually had suggested, so somebody had suggested that you come back on the show again.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said before, I don't need a reason to have you back on. But I don't want to bring you on and have you talk about aliens or just anything that you're not familiar with. So
Right.
I was like, hey, what do you want to talk about? What have you been doing lately? And you suggested cursed objects.
Yeah.
So what's because you kind of told us a little bit of history of some personal things that you own the last time you were here. What's your history with cursed objects?
So my history with cursed objects started a handful of years ago when I was researching letters that accompany cursed objects specifically.
Okay.
So because the letters that so essentially a cursed object is something taken from a location that has a reputation for being haunted, usually. If people remove something like a rock or a book or whatnot, and then their lives fall apart in one manner or another. They then sometimes will send that object back to wherever they took it from, and they usually send a letter with it. And the letters, oddly enough, follow the same formula for the most part, which is I am so very, very sorry, letter of apology and regret, an explanation of what happened, and then more begging at the end of please put this back where it came from.
Sure.
And then they sign off. I have yet to come across a follow-up letter that says, oh, thank you for putting that back because all of my ill will, like, everything went away. But anyway, I was examining those type of letters, which brought me to the cursed rocks that are at the Bell Witch Cave. It
Sure.
brought me to letters that are sent to the National Park Service at places like Gettysburg. People will remove rocks from Devil's Den, or just even like bird feathers or sticks or something. It doesn't have to be anything of like significance. And they'll mail that back to the National Park Service with a letter, and they'll copy the letters and they'll keep them for a very short period of time, and then they throw them away, which just breaks my heart. But places like the Bell Witch Cave, they actually display the letters because that really adds to the mythos, right? Of
Sure.
don't mess with anything here. Don't cross the witch. So then I started diving into other objects. I wanted to know if this was something that kind of accompanied really any place that is haunted. And some of I went to Mansfield Reformatory. There were stories there of people if you ever go to Mansfield Reformatory, you'll see all of the geese, the Canada geese that are there. It's
Sure.
annoying at times. Well, people have taken the feathers from the Canadian geese or Canada geese and shipped them back because things went awry after doing
Wow.
so. But I always found it just an interesting exercise into looking into the place itself, but also how we as humans kind of interpret things when our lives start to fall apart.
Sure.
Because I mean, I don't know these people, what was going on in their lives prior to X, Y, and Z happening, but I think it's a human reaction to say, you know what, I was doing somewhat fine, and then I broke my leg and I was in the hospital and my car broke down, and it was all after I took a picture of Robert the doll without asking. Dang it, it
Right.
has to be Robert's fault. And maybe it is. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that started me on looking into cursed objects and trying to find as many places as possible, and even finding places that didn't have a reputation for being haunted so much that like park rangers would come up with these stories because visitors and tourists were taking things, which you're
Mm-hmm.
not supposed to take things from national parks, right? But they do anyway. So some
Sure.
places they come up with stories of, if you take it, you'll be cursed. And then things that didn't really slow down things being taken, it just caused people to send them back after they took them. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what got me started in all of that, and that's how I got ultimately how I got involved in STM too, is because I was already looking into cursed objects, which led me to the Bell Witch
Yeah.
thing. But yeah.
Yeah. Very well, and it is. I mean, you're right. What came first, the goose feather or the fact that you just had an unfortunate series of events? Is
Mm-hmm.
is it that there is a correlation, or at all, and maybe these things are genuinely cursed, or is it because I do find it interesting that the phenomena, and I'm just going to use that term here to cover a broad spectrum of meaning, the phenomena doesn't always seem to carry over from place to place. So, like, one thing that I'm familiar with is more of, just locations themselves being anomalous.
Mm-hmm.
One really famous example is going to be, I guess it depends on if you're a TV show fan or not, but one example is going to be Skinwalker Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
The family immediately before, where all the big stuff happened, they never experienced anything paranormal or strange or odd. And then this
Right.
new family moves in and they experience things that you just can't really explain. So is it the property itself?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe there's anything really going on at that property now. I think that they just do it for a TV show. And that's, but hey, I haven't been there, so what do I know, but
Yeah.
we see that a lot. We'll see people move from locations that never have anything. Actually, this episode of Weird World that Pato and I did, we talked about the Demon House, and which is a very interesting story. With a family with possession and hauntings and all this horrible, terrible stuff in this one family's home, but there's not a history of it.
Right.
But then people tie it to that location directly. So, don't go to the demon house and pick up its rocks. It's not there anymore, but you can still go to the plot.
Right.
Or, bad things will happen. And so, why does that happen? Is it because it comes and goes? Is it because it's directly tied to a location? I think that's a really interesting situation. What are some of your favorite stories of these cursed objects?
Um, so as far as some of the stories go, I mean, it's wild the range of stories that come from even something like the rocks. If we just limit to the rocks from the cave and you look at
Mm-hmm.
the letters that they have on the walls there of warning, it starts with, it can be something like, we left the cave and on our way home the car broke down. It
Right.
can go from something that's somewhat simple to um the one letter, they go into how they went through a divorce, they went through surgery, illnesses, lost family members, and others ended up in prison, just all in one
Wow.
letter. Like all of this happened to them within a few months, and they attribute it to the fact that they took a rock from the Bell Witch Cave. um
Wow.
there are other stories where people take something and then they see entities in their home. um a little girl was seeing a figure and was complaining about that, seeing snakes, had gotten bit, scratches, things like that. Um, I don't know. The seeing the entities I find more um those are more intriguing for me than saying that, I got into an accident or I had to go to the hospital or
Right.
something like that, because I feel like that can happen to us really at any time
Hmm.
anyway. But if you weren't seeing entities before and now you're seeing things in your home that are terrorizing you, I think that that is more, I don't know, more questionable, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. I was just telling, actually, over the weekend, I was telling somebody about, I've talked about before, my human rib bone that I bought.
Oh my
On the way,
goodness.
yeah, I bought a human rib bone, and I like human remains. I'm an oddities collector. I like
Mm-hmm.
preserved things. But the first human remain that I bought was a human rib bone, and when I drove home from buying it, the brakes on my car went out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it related to the fact that I have somebody's incomplete remains in my car, or was it the fact that I just drove a piece of shit car? It could have been either.
Right.
So I mean, it was one of those things. I don't think that there's any personal correlation. I still own it. I didn't get rid of it. I kept it,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't feel like things have happened because of me owning it. But
Yeah.
it's very easy for you to make that connection because I literally left that store, drove home, and my brakes went out. So
Mm-hmm.
I can understand, how people could come to that conclusion, even when it's not necessarily, have you ever, so Robert is one of my favorites just because he is genuinely fucking creepy.
Yeah, he does. He
Like,
looks very creepy. I mean that with
hey,
the utmost
yeah,
respect.
yes, absolutely. Yes, with the most respect. He looks handsomely creepy.
Yeah.
Um, have you seen Robert in person?
I have not. No.
Oh my God. Is it something that you would want to do? Because honestly, I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, I'd go see him. I'd see
You
him
would go see him?
and I'd ask to take a picture. I don't think I'd have a problem with that. Um, but I would definitely ask first. And the
Yeah,
thing is also how do you know that he says okay, right? I guess you
that's
just
true.
assume that you ask and that's good enough. What if he's feeling particularly feisty that day and he's like, "No, you can ask all you want, but I'll just show you on your way home
It's
that
like, nah, right. I'll
I
tell you
said
about it.
no."
Very true. That's very
um,
true. I don't know what the tall tale sign is there.
I don't
For
either.
how he asks. Because I've never seen him because I'm honestly very intimidated. So and I don't really I don't subscribe to a lot of those ideas.
Hmm.
And that just and like my core or something about that particular story tells me maybe you should stay away from that one.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is with when it comes to something like maybe it's because of the amount of time that I've spent looking into it, but I will not take a rock from the Bell Witch Cave. I'll take rocks from anywhere else that I've gone
Sure.
to, but I'm not going to take it from the Bell Witch Cave. And I'm not sure that I truly think that something would happen to me. It's more out of a, I don't know, healthy dose of respect for the story itself, maybe.
Sure.
Um, but things also morph and change over time when, like Robert, for him, his story is taking a picture. You have to ask for
Right.
permission. But I'm sure that there are people that just go in and they kind of taunt him. And it's not even a
Oh
matter
yeah.
of the picture, it's the taunting. And then something happens, and well, it's because you taunted Robert.
Hmm.
The same thing at the cave. You have the rocks were the big thing, and now people are sending back souvenirs that they've bought in the gift shop, which souvenirs
Oh
weren't part of
wow.
the original mythos, right? But
Right.
but they are now. It's like a constantly morphing mythology. It's just intriguing to watch.
That is really interesting. Well, and is it because I mean, could it be because the perception was incorrect and people thought it was rocks, but really it was just the thought that you were just kind of jovial about it and didn't take it very seriously in general, and
Hmm.
that's why it could spread to things like souvenirs,
Hmm.
is because you broke the rule, and the rule was to not be an asshole about it.
Right. It could be that. It could be something also about what's already there. It's just the place in general and anything that would be associated with that place. And then there's
Hmm.
also the argument that you kind of bring your own haunting to things. So
True.
um
Yeah.
we could be haunting ourselves in a way. And
Yeah.
it's our fault more so than anybody else's or anything else's.
That's a very Keel theory. That was his thing.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties in with kind of the especially last week's episode where we had Druid Crowsong on, where and we were talking about magic and kind of how magic works. That if all of that stuff is to be believed, then the act of haunting is something that we kind of manifest ourselves, and we kind of curse these things. You know, I don't. Does nature do that? Can nature? Can it both be true? Can there be something about a geographic location that affects physical stuff around it? You know, there's definitely lots of stories that suggest that. You know, maybe because of the caves or the crystals or I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other. Maybe it can be. In some cases, it's a byproduct of the environment, and in some cases, it's us coming home and kind of charging these things with negative energy, and then letting it loose in our own house. You know?
Yeah. That is interesting. My friend Cherish, who owns the oddity store, who sold me the human rib bone. So she gets these things from people all the time. These cursed and haunted objects, and she spends. I mean, she works at the shop. She spends a lot of time with these items. A lot. I mean, she's got so much that she opened up a whole haunted museum dedicated to them. And when we went down, and the first time I saw the museum, she kind of gave us a little private tour to see everything. And she was kind of talking about stuff, and she was saying that, like, a lot of the stuff, nothing happens. I mean, she's with it all the time. Nothing ever happens. She says, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it happens. She's got like this little car thing, and it like does a little automated, it's like a little car figure, and it like lights up and plays a song. It'll pop on by itself randomly. Sometimes she'll walk by a certain doll and it'll pop off the shelf. But then other times things don't really, they just kind of sit around. And she's got some strange stuff down there. Things that people have found buried on properties. One person brought in what they believe to be a diebuck box, which is an interesting item, because the way that the diebuck box worked was that it was completely a hoax,
right?
But now people claim to have them and claim to have some serious fucking power to them. So that's interesting, because then it's like, well, so it started off as being just this fairy tale, and now it has actually come to life because of the belief that it can.
Right. Yeah, that reminds me a little bit of the Hexam heads, which were these little stone carved heads found over in England, that supposedly, upon these children finding them in the garden and digging them up, the house that they lived in, which was almost like a duplex type situation, they had some stuff go on, but also the neighbors on the other side of the duplex started to see this creature and had other issues happen, like hair pulling, things like that. Then an academic showed up and took the heads for a little bit, and she saw like a werewolf in her house.
Oh, wow.
But there were all of these things happening, and then eventually like a construction worker comes forward and says, well, I made those heads for my daughter when I was working in that area. Like, I carved them out of stone. I made 3 of them. You've only found 2. But I just made them for my daughter. There's nothing like ancient about them, because the idea was that they were these ancient Celtic heads,
right?
Like talismans or whatever. And he's like, no, I made them. And I guess that was kind of verified based on what he said he created them out of. But so that would seemingly take the power away from this happening, right? But multiple people saw things from these while in possession of these heads. So even if it was made, that, I guess it just made me wonder, when it comes to certain things, if so this dad makes these, carves these faces out of stone and then drops them, never brings them home, whatever. Was there something in the stone itself that caused an issue later when somebody dug it up? Was there
Yeah.
something associated with the people themselves that this just became a, I don't know, like a little gateway for that to manifest? I don't know, but it wasn't just like a one off. It wasn't just one person saw something weird. There were multiple people through a period of time that had odd things happen to them, but supposedly from something that was just made by a construction worker for his kid. So
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's right. I mean, you're right though. It's a very similar, very similar type of situation. What comes first there? Why does it break through? Do you, I'm trying to think of how I want to frame this question. Do you think that it is these objects themselves, or are you more leaning towards it's the land itself that some of these things come from?
So
Or maybe neither. Maybe you don't think either.
I suppose I would be more inclined to think the land itself, unless there's something that someone has done to imbue an object. And I'm thinking specifically of places that I've gone, like investigating, where people have gone in and attempted to shift the environment itself through ritual or sigils or whatever magic craft that they practice,
Okay.
to try to change the entire feeling of a building, or see if they can invite something in, almost like opening up a portal.
Okay.
I can see if somebody is messing around with things like that, that maybe now items can have an attachment to them of some sort.
Hmm.
But in general, I would think that the land itself kind of has this story to tell that kind of gets pushed through these items.
Okay.
I don't know, and it's more complicated than that. I'm
I'd
sure,
agree.
but I don't know. I think that that's one possibility.
So before I dig into kind of my next, because I do kind of want to get into a little bit of like general practice witchcraft, and it seems to be, I don't know why this is like the theme of the show lately. Heather, what's your spiritual background? Do you have any particular beliefs or practices?
Haha. Well, you see, I am on Instagram as the Pagan Historian.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I am on there for two reasons with that name. Pagan, because if I were to be told you must choose a title for your religious belief, it would be pagan.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's quite a wide umbrella, and I haven't found anything like super narrow to narrow it down for me. And then historian,
Sure.
because that's my background, but also because anything to do with pagan history is kind of intriguing to me. So anyway, it's more of an animistic type view is where I am when it comes to religion.
Okay. Fair enough. That's enough for me. Are you familiar with? And you probably are. A lot of people might be. Are you familiar with the a freezer spell?
No, no. Well, maybe. Tell me what it is.
That's okay. So freezer spells are basically if you have something that you would like to put a stop to. Sometimes a lot of people associate it. A lot of modern day witchcraft is practicing against other people, which I don't really so much agree with. But sometimes, right? Let's just say you have a person that you don't like. You'd like them to leave you alone. You'd like them to get off your back, stop talking bad about you. You'll write their name on a piece of paper, freeze it in water in a container.
Oh,
yes. Container.
I've heard of this.
Stick it in the freezer. It shuts them up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of witchcraft is like that. A lot of witchcraft is tied to tying these negative feelings. It could be positive feelings, tying feelings to objects and then doing something with that object. Jar spells are also like that. And there's many different jar spells that you can do.
Yeah.
And you kind of stuff intention into the jar and then, you go out and bury it. So that's not really uncommon in that practice. And especially in things like, because honestly, I'd say a good majority of witchcraft in the United States comes from hoodoo. Which we know are, for people that don't know, hoodoo is basically when slaves were brought over to America they traditionally at that point in time practiced voodoo, but then they kind of made their own spin on it in what they could practice. It's very kind of dirty and natural, not dirty, but just very natural and like very easy, for the most part. That's where you kind of get stuff like freezer spells. It's just very just by the book. Oh, you want to shut somebody up? We'll freeze them,
Yeah. Very
things
much
like that.
intention based.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, like I said, a lot of witchcraft is like that. I mean, do you think that, maybe this could be happening with some of these objects? We're just infusing them with negativity, positive, whatever it is that we're infusing them with, and then setting it off into the world and letting it do its thing.
Yeah, I'm certain that happens with some of these, because to me, and this doesn't even have to be with a cursed object. We can see it even like you wake up in the morning and you're in a really bad mood. If you don't curb yourself a little bit, the rest of your day will go poorly. Like, it's not like all of a sudden, oh, there's great news. Maybe once in a blue moon, something might pull you out of it if you can't get yourself out of it. But in general, if you wake up with a bad mindset, the rest of your day will follow suit. I think it's the same thing. Right. If you go to any of these locations, if you go to the Bell Witch Cave and you already have it in your head that if I take a rock, I'm going to be cursed, and you take a rock, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. Because you already have that intention out there. So, of course, anything that goes wrong, you can easily attribute to that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that could be part of it. Part of the mix. I think my controversial take on all of it is that it's all of these things together. And I know people don't like that, but oh, go ahead, Patty.
I was just going to say, I think the best magical defense that one can have is be thoroughly convinced that other people ain't shit. And then
confidence. Yeah.
Be like, and then it's like, you can't do shit to me. Get away from here. And that's it. And
I would agree with
that. I think it takes a supreme amount of confidence to be able to do this stuff. And if that's what you want to do, like, cool. And I think the people that really are super successful for it, with it, kind of have very strong belief. And just like, and fear is a very strong emotion. Unfortunately, sometimes fear overshadows confidence. And that's why a lot of things do have negative vibes. And, when we think about spirituality and when we think about objects being empowered, we think about things being haunted more than we think about them being empowered, right? It's always got a negative connotation to it, is because fear is one of the strongest emotions we can have, and it overrides things. But if you can come it from a place of strength and confidence, then this stuff can all be positive, My 2 cents.
Yeah.
All right. Going away now.
I agree with that.
Later, y'all.
No, I have more to say on that. No, that's why, when people experience things, dark figures in their bedroom, whatever it is they experience, werewolves, Dogman's really popular for this. And Heather, I think that you might know a little bit about Dogman. I don't know, but that's what I hear. And anyway, one of the things that people say that they do when they repel Dogman is rebuke them in the name of Christ. And it works. And it doesn't work. I don't think it works because Dogman's afraid of Jesus. I think it works because of the confidence being expelled.
Yes, I would agree with
what
that.
I mean?
Right. Well, right. Prayers are spells. Prayers are focused intention. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I've always felt that way. Like I know we've been talking about religion so much these past couple episodes, but my default OS is definitely Christianity. I mean, that's what I was raised in. That's what I know all of the stuff to. That's my default operating system, And but I wouldn't put it above anyone else's, nor would I claim that it's any more accurate or correct, using air quotes, than anybody else's. That's right. Just the programming that I had. That was the rule book that I was given. And you're right. Like, no, I don't think dogmen, or in my case, aliens, are necessarily stricken down by the Our Father. But if you use it as a focal point to focus your intention, then it doesn't matter really what you're saying. It can have the same effect. whether or not you're chanting whatever the fuck they chant in the craft versus the Our Father or the Hail Mary. I mean, it's the same shit, right?
Yeah.
It's just a way to trick yourself into focusing your intent in one singular direction and then trying to accomplish something with it, you know?
Right. And expelling the fear. I mean, you get rid of the fear because, oh, I've got God on my side, or, oh, I've got, whatever it is on your side. So therefore you don't have that fear anymore. I do find that really, really interesting. So that is, I mean, intent is obvious.
And that's when
on a lot of this stuff, I think.
And that's when you kind of level up, is when you realize that none of the specifics matter. It's just you, right? Like when you when you really start believing in yourself and realizing that you're the one shoving these things out, you're the one rebuking these things, and you're still going to say whatever you're going to say because you're used to saying it, but it's you. That brings back to my original statement, which took me off the cough button, which is arrogance will get you everywhere with this stuff. Supreme confidence and cockiness will make you the most powerful magician on the fucking planet. I swear to God. I swear to God. Like, really, I do. I think that's what it comes down to more than anything. And it seems counterintuitive. I think a lot of people that I see kind of practicing this stuff, they kind of lack that confidence. Not that I know everything about everyone, you know what I mean? But sure. I think that it's kind of a misnomer. Like the two things don't seem to go hand in hand. I think that's why a lot of people struggle with the craft. But when you do find people that do have that confidence and do have that ridiculous sense of self-belief, those are the ones that can really manifest some pretty incredible things, and yeah. All right.
Heather, what say you about?
All right, and then mute.
He leaves. I mean, he's here. He's always here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just call me the entity.
It's the mic drop. Yeah, he's doing the mic drop is what he's doing. He's doing a good job at it, but he's hitting us with that mic drop. Oh, Pato. So, I mean, but what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that's like, so these people that return these objects, let's talk about that for a minute. So their belief is that once they return it, right, this all goes away.
Better. Right. And this is why I wish that there were letters, that they would take time to write the letters like a follow-up letter.
Sure.
Because I'm curious, did it get better? Or did it not get better because things aren't going well, and then it's some other reason that after that point, like, oh, it wasn't the rock that I took or the doll that I bought, or whatever it may be, or did things genuinely get better? Because I think both are worth examining. If things got better, then that's great. I'm glad that was that a shift in you, or was it maybe there was something attached? Because there's also the idea that things attached to items. So
right,
I'm not dismissing that either. I don't really dismiss much, but I don't know. I really would love just once to find a follow-up, or to the closest thing that I can think of is so, and this goes back to the Bell Witch Cave. When I started, I went and visited the Archive of the Afterlife in West Virginia, which is a museum full of haunted artifacts. And it was my first time visiting there, and he had just gotten a doll from the Bell Witch Cave. And I asked him about it because you see this porcelain doll, she's painted up to be all spooky looking, and there's a little tag on her that says Bell Witch Cave. So I'm like, when did you get that? Because I was getting ready to go to Adams, where the cave is, within the month. And he said, oh, that just came in last week. And I said, did it come with a letter? And he said, actually, yes, it did. So I asked if I could read it because he still had it. I took a picture of it. I still have the picture today. And in the picture, or in the letter, the woman explains that she was a descendant of the Bell family, which is why she went to the cave anyway, kind of family history type thing. She bought a doll and she took, I think, 3 rocks. And she said that she was tired of all the scratches and bites, and so she wanted to get rid of the doll. So she sent the doll to the museum rather than sending it back. She sent it to the museum, And she said her name was Blossom. So okay, that's the where that ends for me for about a year. The next year, I get involved with Small Town Monsters, and before we are fully aware of how we're going to approach the Mark of the Bell Witch movie, I started looking at people who had experiences, because we ended up going a historical route rather than like modern day stuff.
Right.
But in the beginning, I was looking for people, and I thought back to that woman who had sent in Blossom. So I searched her name, and it turns out she had actually, because in her letter she mentioned that she'd taken rocks and the doll, right? But she didn't send the rocks to the museum. She just sent the doll. So I looked her up, and she was on one of these paranormal shows on YouTube with these, I think the Foreman brothers are their names. But she explains that in that episode, you can find it on YouTube, that she took 3 rocks from the cave. By the time she got home, I think she only had 2. In the episode, she never mentions the doll, though, just the rocks. But she had 2 rocks at home, and then I think one got lost, and she had 1 left, and then the brothers come out, and they investigate or whatever. But she still had things happening in her home. I was always curious if, like, where did the doll come into place with this? Did she have it whenever those brothers came out? Because I don't know when they filmed this either. But I just wonder, because they came out and they did different things to try to make the home a little more livable, and get the entities out of there. Like, was it the doll at all then, or was it the rocks? And did things get better? Did things get better at all when you got rid of the, like, was the doll part of it and you got rid of her and things started to get better, but then it didn't completely go away? Like, that's the closest, I guess, somewhat follow-up, is that I saw enough between that letter and then the YouTube series. In the series, since she didn't mention the doll, I was just assuming, it could be incorrectly, that she had already sent the doll away and was still having issues with the rocks. But that's the closest that I've ever come to that. I should just track her down, but we ended up not going that way. And so my research went a different way, and then I just kind of dropped it until just now, when that came back to my my mind. But yeah,
I mean, obviously you can get a hold of her somehow. She's done a show, so she's somewhere.
Yeah, I had already found her. I mean, she's on Facebook and stuff. I know that, because I tried to find her before I realized which way we were going, and I had it written down where I could search for her, but I never reached out to her.
Isn't it so weird how we have to stalk people? Like, how many notes we have of people and their contact information and potentially their address, in case you have to send snail mail because they're not on social media, and it is very weird.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's the way it goes.
All of these stalker behaviors that I honed in middle school, right? That are I'm kidding.
That are helping today.
I'm kidding. Sort of.
Yeah. Maybe. It comes in handy, I tell you.
Yeah.
That's really funny. It would be really cool if you could get somebody who claims to have a haunted object now that's debilitating to them, that you could then take off of their hands for the time being.
Yeah.
And then, just see what happens, as you're having close contact with this person.
Yeah, a haunted object disposal service could be an interesting thing to run. The thing is, you'd have to verify that it's haunted before you take it. Otherwise, it's just some crackpot people selling you their shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where you're just going to send
people will give it away.
Oh no! Well, I didn't mean really sell. I know I said sell, but I meant like sending you their shit. Where it's just like people are going to send you junk in the mail and be like, get rid of this for me, it's haunted. And like, you don't really know if it is, or like, you would have to vet them before you take it. And then, I mean, just from if you're going to run it like a scientific experiment, you'd have to do baseline and then be like, okay, well, this is where we're at now. And then we're going to remove this from the environment and see how things change. Right. But I mean, it could just be an excuse for people to send you stuff. And then if you take their stories at face value, why not believe them? And then who knows? You could get a little museum thing going.
That's true.
Well, that's That's what Cherish. I mean, she'll sell the haunted objects. I mean, people will bring them in, give them to her for free, just to get them off her hands. And I mean, she'll put them up and sell them. And people, they don't really sell that well because they're allegedly haunted. So then whatever doesn't, she'll stick into the museum, and whatever does, hey, great. But if you really wanted to, continue to deep dive something like that, Heather, I mean, I think that it would be worthy to contact somebody like that who gets these things like that all the time, to try to vet people to see what the other end of that is like. I mean, Pat's right. You might come across people who are just, full of shit, but you might come across some genuine cases that you could probably study more in depth, curating that relationship with those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean,
and also then I would have to make sure that I am personally in a good mind set before I take anything like that too, which would be for anybody who's going into that kind of situation, to make sure that you're in a proper state of mind before taking on something like that. Because the last thing I need is some sort of excuse for when things go, if things go poorly, for me to just be in that negative mindset, and then it just snowball from there.
Oh yeah.
Well, you'd almost want you'd want like a satellite location that you could remotely monitor with cameras and stuff. And then you don't want to bring them into your house, right? Like, so you have like a garage, or you have something where the stuff gets stored, and you have it on webcams, and you charge people, $3 a month to be like Big Brother. You know what I mean? Where if they want to watch it, they could tune in, and this is Heather's haunted garage, filled with haunted stuff.
I think we're onto something here.
Yeah, I can do this all day. I get ideas like this all the time. There you go. That's my gift to you.
I love it. Thank you.
That's not a bad idea, actually. I mean, people would pay.
And the property itself would be a tax write-off because it's a business expense. You do it at a Small Town Monsters like compound or something, and there you go. Like I said, tax write-off.
Perfect.
Do tours, do like super limited tours, like maybe once a month, and then you could jack up the ticket prices because it's so limited.
There it is.
Man, people would flock.
People would flock.
They'd be like, "Oh yes, absolutely. I'll pay $75 for that ticket," and you just kind of tell everybody where everything came from. They would, though. That's the crazy part. They would.
Yeah.
But so I mean, I don't know. Like I said, my area is more in like haunted or even cursed locations. One of the first stories that I came across as a professional doing this was, of course, the Curse of Chief Cornstalk. And that's a very popular one. Cornstalk did not want to fight the white men anymore that were trying to take over the land in that area, so he traveled out to the white people, and they decided to try to make a peace offering, and they decided to take him hostage for negotiations against the other Native Americans in the area. And they treated him really well, allegedly, up until there was a fight that broke out and a couple of white men were killed, and so they killed him in retaliation, and allegedly before he died he cursed the land because he was pretty much betrayed.
Sure.
And that's why people think that whole little corner there between West Virginia and Pennsylvania and Ohio is really kind of fucked up. Do I believe that? I don't, not necessarily, because I feel like when you start kind of you start in that area, right, and you're like, oh, this is a really weird area, and then you just kind of, the miles start piling up, and you just kind of continue going further and further out, and you're like, oh, it's all weird.
Right, everything is odd. Yeah,
everything is strange here. It just doesn't really seem to have much of an end. So then it just kind of, then you hit that roadblock in research, and then you're like, okay, well, then what causes that? Is it related to that intention at all? At this point, then again, we're on land where people, I mean, right now where you stand, listeners, wherever you are, someone's died there. Probably a couple of someone's has died where you are. It's just, is everybody cursing the land when they die? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I should try it when I die. Put a curse on the land, just because, just so that rumor spreads far and people will remember me for the curse that I bestowed on whatever hospital I die in, or I don't know. And then they'll all be like, "Oh, bad stuff's happening at this particular hospital. It must be the ghost of Asher's causing it." It is interesting, and that's a huge undertaking, and I absolutely applaud you for digging into it because it drives you nuts.
Yeah. It's entertaining though. Entertaining in a way that it's like a case study of kind of how we work, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I say that a lot. A big part of this of this field is culture and sociology, the study of people and society and just kind of how we work. I mean, you have to have a little bit of understanding there in order to backtrack these things back through where they start.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's something. What are your favorite? I'm assuming I know that you own the one doll. Do you own other objects that are supposedly, filled with joyful spirits?
Joyful spirits. Well, I have two dolls actually from the Bell Witch Cave.
Right.
And then I do have other dolls that supposedly have things attached to them. And that's based off of like one was okay, if you go to eBay and you type in haunted doll, you're going to find a lot of stuff. And the stories that they have are ridiculously in depth for some of these dolls.
Sure.
But I saw one that was really cute one time and I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't mind having that doll anyway. And so I ordered her. And there was actually stuff that happened when she got here, which was interesting. Things that like the K2 meter would spike around her, but then I'm like, okay, well maybe they have something inside the doll that I'm not going to tear this doll apart to look and see, but maybe that's what it is. Sure. So then I use the like a mag light to do the yes or no questions, turn it on, turn it off, and she would actually respond to that. Or the cat ball thing, the motion sensor thing, put it on her lap and be on the other side of the room so nothing should be moving it, and that would go off. Things like that. Other than that, I haven't actually like purchased anything or been given anything that someone specifically said had something attached to it. I do take things from locations though. So if there was something to the location itself that may be attached to like a rock or something aside from the Bell Witch Cave, I would think that would have been here by now or manifested in some way that I could tell. And so far it hasn't really.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Are you open to taking people's objects from them if they were to offer?
Yeah, I would absolutely do that. Because I find that really intriguing. Yeah, I'd do it.
As long as they write you a letter.
Throw it out there, guys. Yeah, write me a letter, explain what happened. I'll take it. I'll take it off your hands.
Take the orphaned souls and the
well, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Someone's got to, you're doing somebody a favor by doing it. But now that you're putting it out there, I hope people, they will just give you this shit. It does happen. So
that's fine. That's fine. Last year at CryptidCon, there was a doll that someone had. I cannot remember which booth it was, but I was told that they had just been gifted this doll that supposedly was haunted. And I'm like, where are they? I need to see this doll.
Did you see it?
I did. Eventually, they weren't there for a little while. They were late getting to their booth, but eventually when they showed up, I went over. I'm like, I hear tell that you have a doll that has a story. Can I please hold her? And they were like, yeah. And so I got a picture taken with her. And then there was a joke about how you get Heather to come to your booth is you tell her that there's a haunted doll there. But yeah, I wasn't getting any vibes off of it or anything. I was just like, oh, that's really cute. I'm glad that somebody didn't throw it away. I don't know. Because I go off of also this feelings a lot. If I were to pick something up and have a sick feeling in my stomach, I think that would be worth looking into a lot. But I wasn't getting it from that doll, nor have I gotten it from anything that's here in my home. But maybe that's for a reason. I'm not picking up things that freak me out.
Well, and I do think that is a big misconception that people, feel like, oh, it's only significant, it's only supernatural if you feel
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed with fear or illness. Well, why? We
Yeah.
can have, I mean, why can't we have friendly ghosts?
Right.
Like,
Right. Well,
can't
yeah.
you also be overcome with joy and
Mm-hmm.
nostalgia and good feelings? I mean, I think that's valid too, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see why it has to always be negative. That's what, like, the doll that I actually got off of eBay that seemed to respond to things. I wasn't getting any negative feelings from her at all.
Hmm.
I have no idea what might be attached to her if there's anything there, but um, it definitely wasn't anything negative. And I would like to think that I would be able to tell if it was something absolutely horrible, or I don't know, something would have called my bluff by now.
Don't start saying it, Heather, because things will start getting real interesting after this episode. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's haunted doesn't necessarily mean bad. And I think that,
No.
people should, take that. Just like I was saying with the witchcraft and kind of infusing your intention, just because you're doing a freezer spell on somebody for negativity doesn't mean that you can't then turn around and do a jar spell for something positive, career, whatever it is that you're doing. There is also positive intent out there. And if that's what we think maybe some of these things are, then you can have your cake and eat it too. Both things can be true.
Right.
So I do think it's very interesting. Do you have any plans to take? I mean, it's it sounds like that this all very much started for you as a passion project.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to take it into any real career driven areas, or just kind of you study it on and off as it calls to you? Or
So right now it's been studying on and off as it calls to me, but taking note of things. Eventually it'd be cool to
Mhm.
have everything like compiled that I found into a book or something, I suppose. Um,
Sure,
to have out there. But right now it's just kind of collecting the stories as I get them and noting
sure,
them down, and
sure,
then someday maybe those will see beyond my desk like the light of day. But
sure.
for now, at least they're getting recorded somewhere else other than the places that they're happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes it's just the way it is when you research this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You got a whole stack of things that you just don't know what to do with. But you like them. Sometimes keeping it a secret, not really a secret, but keeping it close to you is nice because when you do it as a career, it's your job. But like
Yeah.
when it's something that's special to you, it's for you and that feels good.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. I'm going to put my stuff like that behind a paywall over on patreon.com/itsashers for people to for people to enjoy. Because I got to make money somewhere. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do like to talk about them too. I mean, but I like to talk about them as me, the person,
Right.
because it's what sets my soul on fire.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just. I mean, I guess I could in the middle of a lecture be like, "Hey, did you guys hear about this one time? This one thing happened that has nothing to do with anything I'm talking about." I don't think they'd mind,
No.
but it would make a lot of sense. So, whatever you do with it, I think it's neat. That, like I said, you've taken that on. It is a big endeavor because it's a lot of moving parts and just that subject alone.
Yeah.
Which obviously we've covered here. People can hear that kind of back and forth of what it could be and where it starts and where it ends, and we just don't. There's so much we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that. So just as you're where you're at currently, this is not set in stone, even though it is recorded for all of history now. As of today, August 7th, 2023, what do you feel this phenomena is?
I don't know.
Okay.
That would be my answer. I truly have no idea. Because I think it is a mix of things. So I don't think that I could pinpoint one particular reason for why things are the way they are when it comes to these objects. I just remembered someone had mentioned doing an experiment where they would go to haunted locations. They'd get something, say for just for simplicity, let's say a doll, buy a brand new doll at the store, and start taking it to locations that are haunted and set it in a room when you start the investigation of the night and say, okay, anything is welcome to use this. as its vessel. You can attach to it and then just leave it for the night and then take it to the next location and do the same thing there. Are you changing things as you do that? That's one way that you could perhaps create a haunted object, I suppose. I don't know, but that's just one little possibility of different ways that this could all pan out, and therefore I have no idea how it all works.
Yeah, interesting. Do you think that would cause discourse within the object?
I don't know. I don't
know.
I imagine that it could cause issues. I've heard of situations where objects that had something negative attached to it got brought into an area that had not negative entities around, and then there is all kinds of problems that come up because the negative entities are there and they're like bullying the other ones. I'm thinking specifically at Mansfield Reformatory when they brought in the electric chair that had been used at the Ohio State Penitentiary, because Mansfield never had an electric chair. They have one now on display, but it wasn't used in that reformatory. But once that chair got brought into the reformatory for display purposes, I guess there were issues for the people that were more sensitive to the spirits that were already at home, so to speak, in the reformatory. Things got thrown off kilter, and they were guessing it was from whatever was attached to the chair, because that was the only thing that was new to the environment. So there's that aspect of things as well, bringing a haunted object in, and if it ruins things for other entities that might be in the area. I don't know.
I think that is interesting. Well, I mean, especially if you try to, attach multiple entities, spirits, whatever, to one object, I wonder what that would look like. That makes me curious.
Things to try.
I might try it. Yeah. I might do that. Yeah, actually, I think that would be really interesting. Or if they would just take turns. I mean, I don't know. I don't see why you couldn't. I mean, I don't know. And then eventually I'll sell the doll with 200 souls in it or whatever, We'll see what happens. That would be, because I don't think I've ever seen that claimed before. I don't think I've ever seen, I've never really experienced that. So very interesting. Mansfield's really neat. Do you know who Scott Sukkel is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, he's very cool. He did the tours there a lot. He goes, when he does his speeches, he's like, "Oh, he just got done, doing 20 years in prison or whatever." He's a good guy. He stayed a lot at Mansfield. I mean, overnight, slept in Mansfield a lot, and knows all the stories. He's a gold mine of information for anybody who's really interested in more. I think he would be a great resource and something particularly to Mansfield or Ohio State Reformatory, or whatever you want to call it,
right?
Nowadays. So anyway, Pato, do you have any more questions or comments or mic drops or what you got for us?
No, I thoroughly enjoyed today's episode.
Do you have any history with haunted objects or cursed objects or anything like that?
No, I think the closest. Yeah, exactly. No, I think the closest thing that I have, like kind of magical attachments to is music, songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get that a lot. I feel like that's always been something that I've experienced, synchronicity with music. Cheap Trick's Dream Police or Dire Straits' Walk of Life. If I'm ever driving or I'm in somewhere and that song comes on the overhead, I usually kind of, something weird's about to fucking happen, And then just emotionally too, like music has a profound effect on my emotional state, and by extension my mental state, that like, you kind of, you make a playlist like you're putting together a spell book or something, yeah. So not physical objects though. I don't get like that. To me, the physical stuff is, I really try not to, and that's kind of part of it's a byproduct of my 20s where I moved every year. Like I would have a new roommate and change apartments or whatever. So you learn not to hold on to shit, right? Like I do not possess.
Yeah.
I always laugh at like Daniel Thorndike from Blue Room Insight and Y2K because like that dude has like every DVD he's ever bought still, but he's like young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you get to a certain age and it's like no one holds on to that. No one has every CD they've ever owned. Like what? Someone stole the CD book out of your car, or some you left it at a roommate took it, or what, or you pawned it, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you don't have everything that you've ever had. Stuff kind of just like is transient. You have it and then it goes away, and that's the way I've always looked at stuff. I don't get too hung up on physical possessions because any importance that they have is importance that I gave it. And yeah, so I kind of tend to avoid that. But music, I do feel I kind of, I guess if I give that importance to music, which is interesting because it's not necessarily stuff that I've created. It's other stuff that other people have created and that I've repurposed and recontextualized in my own story.
Do you have a most prized
That's my
possession?
TED Talk.
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh,
My
okay,
most
very
prized possession. I really like my one dog. I guess he's my familiar. I like my kids. Should I say my wife? Or would
People
that
aren't
be bad?
possessions, Pato.
No, I don't know. I don't. Come on, like I fucking you think I believe that? No, I really don't. No,
Fair enough.
it's
Fair
all
enough.
temporary.
I think Pat is on a
Everything.
delay from us.
Yeah, I think so too. Everything's temporary. Remember that. Physical stuff, no, it's temporary. It's my 2 cents.
Heather, do you have a most prized possession?
Wow. Well, let's see. I have a handful of prized things that I don't know. There's a Bible that my grandma gave me that has letters in it that she wrote me. It's a leather Bible that can zip closed, so I was able to tuck in letters that she wrote to me and little handkerchiefs that she gave me and 4-leaf clovers that we had found and stuff. So that would probably be one of them.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. One of my best friends, her mom, who's passed now, she made a cookbook, made a recipe book, and just kind of in there would write different notes and things like that. And I think that kind of stuff is just absolutely invaluable to people. So I think that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought I'd ask the fun question before. After all the spooky, scary, Heather, plug away. Where can people find you and what you do?
Well, people can find me on Instagram at Pagan Historian. You can follow along with my personal endeavors there. Anything professionally, you can find at smalltownmonsters.com or follow us on, I don't know, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, any of that stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's it. What's your next event personally? It's Squonkapalooza.
Squonkapalooza. That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Squonkapalooza.
Right. August 26th.
Yes.
I'm gonna say that's correct.
Yes, it is.
I'll remind people next week. Okay, August 26th in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. It's fucked up that I remember that it's Jonestown because of Jonestown.
Yeah.
So I'll be there. I'll be there with the Kool-Aid. That you it's free.
Too soon.
That would be in very poor taste. My luck, somebody genuinely would like poison the batch, and then I'd be held accountable. And we're not going to do that. So maybe sealed Kool-Aid packets I'll have for people, like the kind you can like put into your water bottles. Maybe I'll have that, just because it's me. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna stop talking now. Heather, again, thank you for coming on. I'm sure you'll be back in the future. I don't see why you wouldn't. You're catching up to Tobias Whalen.
Hey, that's my goal, man.
I
Come
know you
on,
guys are in
Tobias,
a
let's go.
yeah, you're in a I'm pretty sure you guys are tied right now. I'm almost positive that that's the case.
Son
Yeah,
of a
so.
gun. All right.
You got it's who's gonna win it. Let's see. But yeah, we'll have you back on again, I'm sure. And for everybody else, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.